I don't know about you, but the first time I logged into Customer IO and saw that I needed to use Liquid to personalize my messages, I was overwhelmed. Like, it seemed really technical and I didn't know how to do it. But if you're going to build the programs that your customers are going to engage with, you're going to have to learn how to use it. So today I'm going to give you the super basics of what a non-technical marketer like me needed to know to get started. All right, let's dig in. So Liquid is the way that you personalize your messages. It's a templating language, meaning it looks a little complicated. It almost looks like code. But in its basic form, what it does is it allows you to find attributes within the database in Customer IO and then dynamically take the values of individual contacts or people and use those in your messages. And Liquid is used in any kind of email type in Customer IO. You can see I'm in a drag and drop email and we can use it here, but it can also be used in code-based emails as well. So let's go over the basics of how you use it, what you'd use it for. In this case, I have an email open. I'm going to draft some copy and I want to lead out my email by using a person's first name. Since I have a list of several thousand folks in my database, I can't obviously do that manually. That would be too much time. So we're going to use Liquid to dynamically call the first name of everybody in my database, or at least the list that I'm going to send my email to. So to use Liquid and find the attribute of first name, you start by using curly brackets, and you'll use two curly brackets. Those two curly brackets will tell Customer IO that, hey, I'm going to pull a value from my database and use it. If you are calling an attribute from a customer or a person, people, every attribute begins with customer. That tells Customer IO, it's a little confusing with some of the same language here, but Customer IO will then understand that you're trying to find a person. What that is in contrast to is events. So if I'm building a campaign, I can also use the word event. And any data that is stored within the event that triggered that campaign can also be used as dynamic content within the email. Okay, but in this case, we're using people, so I'm going to lead out with customer. Now, then you have to use the label for that attribute after it. So it goes customer dot label of the attribute. Now, if you're ever unsure what an attribute label is, you can always go to the data index. So from data integrations, data index, and you can see a list of your attributes here. In this case, I could just click on first name, the label's up here, copy it, and put it into Customer IO. Now, Customer IO actually suggests that you work out of a Liquid editor, because sometimes if you type it just into the text in a drag and drop email, it doesn't actually pull the data for you. I've personally never had that happen to me, but if they're willing to say something like that, sometimes it's a good thing to do. So where do we find that? If I click in to a text editor, I get all the WYSIWYG options that you'd normally see from a document editor. I'd click on more, and then I'd click on this Add Liquid button, and now it pops up essentially like a coding looking window, right? You'll see that it nicely gives you all of the customer data that you can use. In this case, it's a broadcast send, so I don't have any event data, so it's only showing me customer data. So if I wanted to use that first name, I could just add, and it'll automatically put the curly brackets in for me, and I could add Liquid, and it drops it. You'll see right here, it dropped it in there for me. Now, one of the really important things when using Liquid is creating a fallback. In other systems, this would be called a default value, like in HubSpot. Customer IO doesn't automatically create them for you, so you have to call them out in the email. So there's a couple of ways to do this, and I've got them here. The first way is that within the curly brackets, you'd create a bar, and then add default with a colon, and then the value of the default. So if I were to have a person that doesn't have a first name, then the default value of there would come in. And we can test this. So if I go to preview, you'll see I have a contact record here, and they do not have a first name. So it put in hello there. If I search in for my own email address where I do have a first name, you'll see it updates to hello Michael. Okay? So that preview window will let you know if something is messed up. there's another way that it'll tell you if it's messed up. Now, if you mess liquid code up in any way that's too bad, luckily Customer IO will tell you. So let's say in this case, I can't call an event, but I'm going to anyways. So I'm going to go event middle name. This doesn't exist, and Customer IO is going to recognize this. So now you'll see that I have this error up here that if I were to click on, it would tell me which line that there's an undefined variable, meaning it can't find it, and I need to get rid of. So if I get rid of what I just typed here, that error will go away. So it's a useful tool in learning Liquid that Customer IO will tell you where you messed up so that you can fix it. Now, there is one other way I want to show you how to create a default value, and actually it uses an if function. You'll notice here that I start out with a curly bracket and then follow it up by a %sign. That tells Customer IO that we're going to do something different with this attribute. So we lead it out with a function. Sometimes it creates we can create a filter. And in this case, we're using an if statement. So this curly bracket %sign with an if says, now if customer.firstname. And what that's telling Customer IO is we're looking to make sure that the first name exists. And then if it does exist, you'll see now the double curly brackets are back. We want the first name to show up. Then we followed up with else. What happens if the customer first name does not exist? Then we want this to be the value that shows up. And that's the thing with Liquid. There's typically 3, 2, 4 ways to get something done, which actually lends and shows how powerful it can be in your dynamic content utilization. You can do a lot of things with it. And that extends to things outside of content. You can actually use Liquid code in data manipulation and more advanced campaigns. And we'll save that for another video because we're just doing the basics. But just know that as you learn it, there's a lot of powerful capabilities behind it because it's so flexible within the syntax and language that you're using to write it with. I want to make sure you know where to go to learn this stuff. I will push this link in the description of the video. Now, to learn all of the things that Liquid can do for you, I would make sure to bookmark this tab, this page. It's the Liquid syntax list. It's on Customer IO's documentation site. So if I wanted to see how the if statement works, I could come down to conditional tags, click on if, and it gives me examples of how the tag works. And I can even get into more depth here. Thumb through this, you'll learn a lot. You'll see a lot of the capabilities. One caveat I'll say, it's almost always best to lead with a business use case as you're learning this stuff. So for example, if I were trying to say like, hey, I'm querying a customer and I'm going to want a piece of content to say this only if they have purchased this product. Well, then that'll lead me to these documents to figure out how I'm going to do that, right? So there's a lot that's possible. Dig through this. It's a very good resource if you're confused or you run into errors that you can't seem to figure out. Come back to the documentation, maybe even use a little bit of AI to help troubleshoot it, and you'll be able to figure it out. Okay, so those are the basics. That's a crash course. Hopefully that makes Liquid seem a little less overwhelming. If it makes it seem overwhelming, well, just know that with experience, you'll get the hang of it. It'll actually be really powerful. It just takes some time. So good luck. If you have any further questions about Liquid or how to use it or specific use cases in your business that you need to figure out, put them in the comments below and I'll see if I can help.